Hello and welcome to this SilverStripe screencast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to migrate a static site into a SilverStripe project. And at the end of it, we're going to have a custom SilverStripe template that has been brought over from just plain HTML. So you might wonder why we're doing this exercise. Well, CSS and JavaScript and HTML, they're all sort of a common ground. And so we're starting with something that we understand. The other thing I really like about this is it's kind of like that feeling you get when you have been traveling all day and you finally arrive in your hotel room and all you really want to do is just chuck your bags in the middle of the room and worry about it later. It feels good to just sort of have everything in place. Even though it's totally unorganized, you know that you've sort of made the migration and you can now work with everything under one roof. So that's sort of the analogy I like to use. It's nice to have all your stuff in the SilverStripe project, even though it isn't working yet. So let's first create a directory called static in our theme. You might remember that in the theme directory, all the subfolders are arbitrary, so you can feel free to create something like this. You can call it anything you want. You can call it HTML, or some people might call it raw, source, anything that you might be familiar with. Just remember what the name is. And in that directory, we're just going to dump all of our static assets. Be sure to preserve the file structure. Since we've used relative paths for all the assets in this static template, we should be able to load it without a problem. So let's test it out. We're going to go to our base URL /themes/onering/static, or whatever you call the directory, /default HTML. And when we load it, we do see that it renders perfectly. And we'll do the same thing with the home.html template. Looks good. So now that we've brought this static site into SilverStripe, we have a place to start, and we can start carving it up into SilverStripe templates. So the first thing we'll do is copy over the static HTML into a SilverStripe template. We'll start with default.html. This mockup is intended to represent the most basic of page types in our site. As discussed in a previous episode, SilverStripe conventionally purposes the page.ss template for this case. So copy everything from default.html into templates/page.ss. That template currently contains our hello world proof of concept. So just reload the site and see what we get. And it looks pretty bad. You can see that the HTML is loaded, but basically nothing else has. So we have some pathing to correct here at the very least. So let's just copy everything over from that static directory into its appropriate place in the theme. So static/CSS is going to go back to onering/CSS. Static/images is going to go to themes onering/images, etc. Let's give it another try. And it still looks like an unstyled mess. So the easiest thing to do here is just go to your web inspector and see what's going on. Obviously, we're getting a lot of red errors here, a lot of 404s. So let's see what it's trying to access and we'll correct it. So we see here that the browser is trying to load css/bootstrap.min.css, which is incorrect. Let's update all of the CSS to load from our theme directory. So let's go into our template and update all those href attributes. So css/bootstrap.min is going to become themes/onering/css/bootstrap.min.css. And css/style.css is going to become themes/onering/css/style.css. Now if we reload the page, we see a bit more style. We're still missing a few things. Looks like all the JavaScript isn't loading, the logo is missing. But before we make those adjustments, let's talk about something called themedir. As a matter of best practice, we never really want to repetitively hard code any values in our template that are subject to change. This principle is more commonly referred to as dry, or don't repeat yourself. We'll talk more about dry practices in future tutorials, but for now, the main offender of this rule is our reference to themes/onering. SilverStripe provides a global helper variable that returns our current theme directory, and that variable is called $themedir. So we'll replace all the references to themes onering with $themedir. So nothing really changes, but we can feel good knowing that if we ever change our theme, we don't have to make any updates to the template, so that's great. Now let's see if we can do something about the remaining 404s. Let's update all of the script tags to point to themedir/JavaScript instead of JS. You'll find most of these updates at the bottom of the document. Let's give it another refresh. And we're only left with one remaining 404, and that is the logo. So let's go in and find that logo.ping and update the path to go to themedir/images. Everything loads correctly now, and we have successfully migrated a static document into a SilverStripe theme. And we can go in and just delete that JavaScript folder that we created with our theme. The static version of the site uses JS, so let's just go with that. Thanks for tuning into this screencast. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below.